I'd like to introduce Andy. Andy is with the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals at Northern Arizona University. He joined them in 2013. He's currently a project director for the National Tribal Air Association. And he's going to be speaking with us today about a particular project having to do with an IAQ needs assessment that the association and others conducted recently. Andy, if you would, and I know you're here with a guest, so if you would like to say something about your guest as well, I'd invite you to do that.
Sure. Thanks, Phil. Hello to everyone on the phone, everyone in the room. My name is Andy Busser. I'm going to just talk to you for a few minutes about a national needs assessment we did for Indian Country on indoor air quality. I'm joined by the NTAA chairman, Mr. Bill Thompson, who's also the vice chief of the Penobscot Nation up in Maine.
Welcome.
It's an honor to be here. I appreciate it. Also, by the way, Bob Axelrod, if somebody says your name 3 times, is that when you appear like that? Yes. Come on.
Andy, also, Aaron, who is our contractor, will be advancing the slides on your command.
Oh,
so
great.
Say next slide.
Thanks. Yeah, sure. Next slide. And next slide. This is a presentation that was conducted at the National Tribal Forum on Air Quality last month by Angela Benedict, our lead on the NTAA Indoor Air Quality Work Group. So I'm presenting on her behalf and as well as the work group that NTAA has. NTAA is the National Tribal Air Association, and our mission is to advance air quality management policies and programs consistent with the needs, interests, and unique legal status of American Indian tribes and Alaska Natives. On our website, you can find the full report, as well as another publication that we just made public last month, and it is the 2016 Status of Tribal Air Report. I'll pass it around the room, but it's also on our website, and this gives an overall picture of air quality needs and interests of tribes around the country as it relates to ambient air, indoor air, and climate change issues. Next slide, please. NTAA is a membership organization. We have 109 member tribes, and from those member tribes, we've developed an indoor air quality work group. Several of those members, both federal agencies and tribes, have contributed to this final report, and just want to thank the folks listed here who helped. And as I mentioned, Angela Benedict, who works for the St. Regis Mohawk tribe, was our lead on this project. I do want to thank Dr. Ashley from HUD for contributing some willing and able volunteers from HUD, as well as folks from EPA and other tribes. Next slide. So this needs assessment, to our knowledge, is the first national needs assessment of indoor air quality in Indian Country. As the NTAA Indoor Air Quality Work Group got started last year, we realized that we needed a baseline of data to really understand the scope of indoor air quality within Indian Country. So the work group got started drafting it and released the needs assessment to tribes in December of 2015. We closed it on March 31st, and 83 federally recognized tribes responded. We were hoping to get some more, but essentially this is 26% of the total population of Indian Country of federally recognized tribes. So it's a good start. It's a good first step for something of this kind. Next slide, please. This shows a map of all the tribes that responded. So as you can see, it is a pretty good distribution of tribes around the country. So in that respect, it is a good representation of Indian Country geographically. Next slide. The assessment questions were developed by the work group over several months. We did have some regional assistance from the Tulalip tribes and Tribal Healthy Homes who'd done some local needs assessments. But really we're looking at what kind of housing folks had, what kind of IAQ program work has been done, some of the basic data that we need to address indoor air quality, such as heat sources, foundation types of houses, and also the capacity of the tribes to deal with IAQ. And finally, we were looking at what is the coordination being done within tribal governments related to housing and environmental and planning departments. Next slide, please. And really, the key findings that the report shows is that the complexity and lack of capacity is preventing tribes from accessing funding to address IAQ. Basically, there's not enough administrative capacity for many tribes to apply for the grants. One person, for example, mentioned that she spent nearly 6 or 7 hours just cataloging and understanding what grants they were actually eligible to do. That takes administrative capacity that many tribes just don't have. Often, in terms of gap grants, in terms of tribal government work, their work plans are very specific. And scanning for IAQ grants isn't really on that work plan. And also, the flexibility to meet those requests is often unique to tribes, and so they're looking for more flexibility in how those grants are offered. And then also, we do need more data in terms of the national scope. This was really just touching on the surface of what is the IAQ needs for Indian country. So more data is needed. Next slide. There was also a pretty consistent and strong call for radon-resistant construction and specific vapor barrier work on new housing, and there's also a need for mitigation in existing housing related to radon. What we found is each tribe has their very unique indoor air quality concerns. There's no blanket issue that the tribes have. They're very specific to their environments and their communities. We asked the tribes what they wanted this work group to do as we move forward as a work group, and their biggest priority for us was to educate Congress and federal agencies about the IAQ concerns of tribes around the country. And then obviously, there's a priority to both increase funding and address the access to funding for Indian country. Next slide, please. We had several recommendations that are listed out in our report. We do need to address urgent concerns to protect public health, and radon is at the top of the list, along with mold and dealing with asthma. That's not a real big surprise, I'm sure, for many of you that work in indoor air quality, but it's good to just have this confirmed that these are what the tribes are telling us. The other big recommendation is to streamline grants and build capacity. What the tribes are asking is that the federal agencies really get their heads together to figure out how to make these grants more easily accessible to tribes. We know the funding's out there, but it's tough to get to. In terms of building capacity, one idea that we talked about at the forum is some tribes just may need some assistance in getting to the grants. Either administrative support, consultation, or some funding just to address the administrative costs related to granting. So that capacity building would be helpful to tribes in getting those grants. And finally, we do want to conduct further assessments. We didn't really address schools or other locations other than residential houses in this needs assessment. So I think to really get a better perspective, we need to look at non-residential buildings as well. Next slide. And because of that, the NTAA work group, Indoor Air Quality Work Group, will be reopening this needs assessment. We're going to fine-tune it based on the responses that we got and include, as I said, non-residential buildings and hope to get some more tribal response now that word is getting out about this work. So we'll be reopening it soon. Next slide. And finally, I invite all of you who are interested in helping with indoor air quality in Indian Country to join us in this work group. We have over 40 members right now, and many hands make light work, so we could use the help. We have monthly calls the second Thursday of each month. We actually have a call tomorrow, but in case you can't make it, our next call will be on July 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And we encourage tribal members to include their housing departments and planning departments. We saw that there really does need to be more communication within tribal governments, these various departments, to figure out how to address IAQ concerns within their tribes. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any questions from those of you in the room for Andy? Melissa, would you see if there are any questions for Andy from folks on the phone, please?
To ask a question, please press *1. And we do have a question from the line of Nate Burden.
Hello, Nate. Go ahead.
How you doing? This is Nate Burden. I had a question about, did you guys look at lead-based paint and the RRP lead safe program, in the influencing of lead paint as an indoor air quality issue, especially in construction, renovation, both on residential and non-residential?
We did not actually look at lead-based paint. That wasn't one of the questions asked, but we'd certainly be willing to consider that for our next round.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, if you want to get us some more information on what your concern is specifically, you can feel free to email me. My contact's on our website.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
Okay.
Melissa, any other questions, please?
Your next question comes from the line of Cynthia.
Thank you. I was wondering, Andy, if you were in touch with any of the professionals in the Native Research Network. That's a huge network of Native researchers and partners who work out in the community, and I'm thinking this work group might be of interest to them.
I'm not familiar with them, but it'd be great to get their information.
Sure. I was just at the conference in Cherokee this week, and it was a wonderful meeting. So I'll share the information with you and link you up.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ryan Callison.
And there's no further questions at this time.
Yeah. We have a follow-up question from someone in the room for the last speaker on the phone. Go ahead, Bob.
We're just wondering if Ryan Callison was involved with that. Well, that's okay.
Okay. Whoever the last speaker was, if you want to send me an email on the Native Research Network, I'll make sure that gets to Andy if you don't reach out to him directly. And there will Go ahead. There will be information in the minutes along with Andy's presentation on how to contact him directly. Dave has a question.
Andy and Bill, first of all, thank you very much for the work that NTAA has been doing on indoor air quality and for your development of this IAQ work group to specifically address those needs. And thanks for being here with us today to begin to bring what you learned to federal agencies. EPA and other agencies, I think, are interested in trying to figure out what we can do with our programs to help make them within the authorities we have and as accessible and helpful to tribes as we can. And so, and today's an important step here here, but just one step in bringing that to us and other federal agencies. I mostly wanted to signal and then ask you that I understand you'll be looking for other ways to put this information before us and our other federal colleagues. Do you have any specific plans at this point, or can you say anything about engaging other federal agencies with what you're learning to help us be able to act into it and what we've learned here?
Yes, definitely. Mind if I speak to that? The National Tribal Air Association had had taken the lead from the TAMS. This is a Tribal Air Monitoring Support Center run by the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals. It's a joint venture between Northern Arizona University and EPA's OAR. Very successful, very good use of funding, and a lot of people learn from that. Jed Harrison, as you probably know from Orion, and he's retired, had taken the lead to involve tribes more, to get the resources of EPA to tribes, find out what their needs were, and he did that with the TAMS. NTAA took that lead up, and we created this work group here, and this is the first step, and it's great, finding out what it is that's important to tribes. NTAA exists as a conduit of information between tribes and the federal government, and as you know, tribes have the right to government-to-government relationship with the federal government. So NTAA does not stand in the way of that. We merely assist and help tribes educate and show them resources of the federal government. Now that we have this assessment, the next part is to find ways to link the information. There's a wealth of information that EPA has done and has been, and what continues to do. And just like this Dr. Jew's study on those 7,000 rooms, school rooms. Goodness gracious. So that wealth of information can be a part of the tribes as well. Please understand, there is a barrage of information coming to tribes from the federal government on a daily basis. And it's because of the Executive Order 13175. Thank goodness that exists. But there's also a bit of a bane to it, because like in school, every teacher thinks that they're the only one sending their children home with homework, right? And with limited resources, and especially since the rescission, as well as the stagnancy of funding, tribes find themselves with a diminished workforce, in addition to attrition through baby boomers retiring, et cetera, and hard to replace and hard to attract people into environmental field when there's diminishing money. The next step, besides educating tribes about what there is with the federal government, is to find ways to go around without lobbying or doing it in a way that doesn't use federal government money in order to educate people on the Hill to bring money to EPA, so that the EPA can disperse it properly. And by golly, the collaboration between all of these other agencies. I mean, when Gina McCarthy came to our National Tribal Forum 3 years ago, she mentioned that since radon was such an important subject for tribes, that she had sought to go thinking outside of the box, that was a phrase back then, to other agencies and try to pool resources and reduce redundancies and fill gaps. That's outstanding. That really is. And so from there, this work has continued. And how can we do that? How can we do more of that? And I guess it takes somebody who, like an organization like NTAA, to partner with like NACA, Bill Becker, and find out how they go about such a thing. So all of these are being worked on right now with NTAA, and this assessment is the first step in being able to bring something to the table to show that we've done this and the work continues, and there's a really good interest in it. Probably one of the most important things, I'll leave you with this instead of taking up all of your time, is that we have to find a way to help tribes, maybe with a template or what have you, to help tribes establish building codes. And HUD has them, definitely. But for the tribes, because it is a place where you dispose of your lead paint. If you have it and you want to get rid of it and you're going to be putting up somebody's house, there may not be anything holding you back from using that lead paint nowadays, if there was any. So, building codes and building, if we can do it in a way that mitigates against mold, radon, et cetera, and lead.
Thank you, Bill. And I'm, on behalf of EPA, looking forward to engaging with NTA and the IAQ work group, and I'm sure I can say the same for our other federal colleagues that are on the phone. having this national assessment, I think, is going to really help inform that conversation and the work we do. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.